Hi everybody, it's Casey Williams. Well, I drive a lot of new cars, but this week I want to share my favorite classics. This is the Mercedes E-Class from the late 70s, early 1980s. This is a car that Motor Trend magazine named 1977 Import Car of the Year, and literally an entire thick book written about it, asking it's the finest saloon car of the 20th century. This is, the late 70s, early 80s E-Class, what Mercedes insiders would call the W123 chassis. And we've got a really cool one I want to show you today. This is a very unique car. I've never seen one like this. I have John Dawes with us, and this is his 1983 Mercedes 240D diesel. Let's go look at it. I gotta tell you, this is bringing back a lot of memories of my childhood. The big steering wheel and the gauges, the classic Mercedes gauges, and the key in the dash, the way it works, and also the wood console. But yours, like we said, yours is a little bit different. It's right-hand drive, it's got cloth seats, you got a stick shift. This was a little atypical for Mercedes in America at the time.
Yeah, we chatted a little bit earlier, and I think one of the things that Mercedes did for a while was we a lot of the options, the higher spec cars were the ones that were imported into the U.S. And to get something a little more stripped down, you had to, go back to Europe to get the ones that had the, 4-speed manual. This is a highly desirable setup with the climate control because it's basically just on, off, and then hot or not as hot. No air conditioning. I lost a little bit of the wood trim there, but and there as well. But yeah, pretty stripped down. But whoever ordered this still ordered it with a sunroof, an electric sunroof. And this car has no tachometer, to my great chagrin, because I really would like to have a tachometer, but it's just got the clock instead. But
that was pretty common then, though.
Yes.
Again, my grandmother's, that was a pretty high spec car, had the clock. It didn't have a tachometer either.
Yeah.
But with the stick shift, it'd be really nice.
Yeah, and I don't know. There's something to investigate there. If someone were interested to know why, I don't have the mobile phone that whoever had this car before me, I think, was a physician and had a mobile phone there, the old school. But yeah, it's pretty. This is an okay example. One thing that people look for in these cars is no cracks in the dashboard, and this one's pretty good for that. Although it spent a lot of its time in the UK, where it's not, the temperatures aren't as extreme as they are here. But yeah, I really like it. I like the, here's the ratcheting emergency brake rather than having it over here. Yeah, and I do get questions about, what's it like to drive, on the wrong side of the road, and it's just one of those things. You kind of just get used to it, and you kind of adjust in your mind. I'm driving in the U.S. versus I'm driving in the UK. Yeah, so it's fun. It's a conversation piece. Get lots of looks.
Very, very cool. Thanks, John. So John, there have literally been books written about this model of Mercedes. What do you think makes it so special that you've owned one? You've owned more than one.
Yeah. I think I've had about 5 of these, and I came to this car through a friend that was running one on waste vegetable oil. So my interest initially wasn't really the car; it was this idea of making my own fuel, my own biofuel. And then once I started driving it on a daily basis, and this was an older, well-used model, it was the kind of car you get in and you sit down and it just rides so nicely. The handling was amazing. The features, for the late 70s, early 80s were just amazing. And I just fell in love with it. I like a car that can go straight on the highway, that doesn't take a lot of input, that there's no shimmy, that kind of thing. And the way the suspension is designed in these, to me, is just amazing. And of course, they're over-engineered. And as I started, owning one and maintaining one myself, I was hooked.
Yeah,
I was just hooked.
That's a super cool car. I've told you this. My grandmother bought one brand new, 1979, and drove it 170,000 miles. And really wasn't anything big wrong with it. She just got to a point where it's like, I don't want to invest that much money in a car with 170,000 miles, and
Sure.
and bought another Mercedes. But I just, from my childhood, just knew how good cars they were, and I think you have to realize, like you did, in the perspective of the time. It's like if you drove these cars today, it's like they still drive very nice. They drive like older cars.
Yeah.
In the mid 1970s, they were a revolution. I mean,
Yeah.
nothing behaved like it, nothing handled like that, nothing rode like that. Just didn't exist.
I still, this car, I still prefer driving this car at times to a more modern car with, I think it's called the McPherson strut, where it's the kind of coil over suspension, whereas this one has these thrust arms on it that kind of stick out front, and it just handles so well. And I'm a little bit disappointed that we went away from that, because things are more, made more to be cheaper,
Yeah.
and things are a little bit more throwaway now. Whereas when this was made, as you said, they threw everything at it that they had, and it shows.
Yeah, and they were not cheap cars. As we've talked about that. They were $16,000, in late 1970s money, and today that's over $70,000 for a car without airbags, without anti-lock brakes, no modern safety systems, had an AM/FM radio in it,
Yeah.
had no sunroof, had MBTEX vinyl seats. I mean, this was it was well engineered, but a pretty basic car at $70,000, and that's the price of a new E-Class today, and it has all of those systems on it, and it's, you really had to know what you were getting here and know what you're wanting when you bought one new. But tell me about your car and what's special about this one. So this is the 240D, which is a diesel.
Yes, this is a right-hand drive.
That's what I think is so cool too.
240D, yeah. It's a 4-speed manual, and the engine in this one is a little bit special because it's the European spec. So it has 70 horsepower instead of 60 or thereabouts from the factory. I got this car a little bit on a whim. I saw it on eBay, and this was during coronavirus. It was January 2021, and I thought, I'll just throw a bid on there, not thinking I would get it. But I did. I won it. My wife had different thoughts about it at the time, but anyway, I was living in Scotland. This car was in Inverness. So I went up there, picked it up. I knew that it would need probably a fuel filter. That's really common on these, so I had some fuel filters with me. But yeah, we drove up from where we were living near Glasgow, picked it up in Inverness, and drove it home. Just got in, I checked what I knew that I needed to check, and drove it home. And it had been sitting for, this car had been sitting and only driven several hundred miles for about 15 years. And I just got in it and drove it home. I knew what to expect because I'd owned some before. So this one to me is special, not necessarily because it's a show car, up to that quality, up to that standard.
Yeah.
But for me, it works. It's functional. I know I've put a lot of kind of sweat equity into this car. And some folks would maybe say, why would you put sweat equity into a rusty old car? But for me, part of it is the tinkering, the kind of getting to know the car, and doing the maintenance maintenance items myself. So yeah, I should have said, this car was named by my daughter. It's OC Old Car. So old car is what we call this car, and it's an '83 petrol green or petrol blue, depending on who you ask.
All right, John, you got to start up. We got to hear it.
All right. Let those glow plugs warm a little bit.
It does sound a little bit like a tractor. That sounds good though. It's what a Mercedes diesel is supposed to sound like.
Yeah. I've got a little bit of a wonky idle at the moment.
It smells good too.
Yeah, I think so. dad for 215,000 miles.
No. It's just a baby. Awesome. That's so funny how you just reach in and turn it off.
I love it. All mechanical.
I know.
No computers.
Those days will never come again.
Some people would turbocharge this on their own after the fact. There's a little bit of kind of jiggery pokery that goes with it, that we would say.
And you know, like we were talking about earlier too, you know, people aren't as familiar. There's two diesels, the 240, which you have, and then there's the 300, which was a little bit larger 5-cylinder model.
Yes.
And a lot of people will see the ones that are the turbo diesels on the deck lid if they remember any of them. Those were the 300s.
Yes.
Little peppier, a little more powerful, but
And in some of
still really durable.